All right, welcome everybody to the Studied X Talks. Today we're discussing mental health in university. And our focus today is going to be so much on solutions because there's been a lot of mental, illnesses in university and so many pressuring, things that most students go through in university. And today I just thought we put together a discussion and talk about all these issues and see how best the students do go through the same things and how they overcome them, how they find solutions and how they apply themselves to their friends and how easy it is for them to open up whenever they have these issues inside of them. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. So let's get into it. So yeah, so welcome. I'm Muchema Sichone, for those who don't know me yet.
It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here. It means a lot. So to get started, the purpose of this discussion is to basically extract as many points as possible, as many solutions as we can. So you could share like a bit of a story on mental health and how it affected you and something like that. But mostly we have to share as many solutions as possible to this idea, this issue of mental health and stuff. Let me just use mental illness. I think that makes more sense. So yeah. So where we're starting from is for a man your age in university, what's the most challenging thing there when it comes to your mental well-being?
Okay, I can start. Okay, so for a guy my age,
Yeah.
I think anxiety would be like the most challenging thing in university. Yeah, anxiety and depression.
The thing is, before one gets affected by either depression, peer pressure, stress, anxiety, and other stuff, there has to be either a negative, upbringing, or maybe the environment or something else. Like, what is it that makes you vulnerable to those mental, how can I call them, illnesses?
Okay, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I think it's usually peer pressure and just school in general. It's quite it brings anxiety.
Yeah. So is it mainly what you see, how the people that you found with, or what is it that makes you feel, what is it that sends you in that trap? It could be school, but before you get into university, there has to be how you walk into university yourself as a person. So before you walk into university, what is it that would sort of like make you fail to maintain your position in that same area, regardless of what happens to you?
Okay, there's you could think of culture shock sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not used to that certain environment and you have to act a certain way.
Yeah.
And that could bring about anxiety, or just trying to fit in and just trying to be extra, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Is there anyone to add to that?
I think I can come in on this one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I think being a male of this age group in university puts me in a certain capacity of vulnerability with regards to essentially people we can open up to. Yeah. Firstly, we are in a setup where from time in school we've been put on a trajectory of competition. Right? Like during our school time, we are literally competing with our classmates. As much as we would try to lie to ourselves that no, we're not competing, but most often than not, we've been cultured to be better than another student. Oh, that student got number one, that student got number two, that student. So there's that urge to be better than another person. And when you're in a place where anxiety is rampant, identity crisis is rampant, it's an environment you do not know, you're trying to conform, you're trying to fit in, whenever you hit that stumbling block, it's extremely hard to open up to to my fellow peers, because I am put on a trajectory where I'm competing with them instead of working with them.
Yeah. All right.
That's my take on this one.
Okay. So now the thing is, the next question is about opening up, even though you've touched a little bit on that. So just in case there's someone willing to add to that, now is the time before we move on to the next. The next question is it easy for a man to open up to the other men when mentally burdened? Like, for example, do you find it comfortable talking to your fellow guy about the issues that are burdening you mentally?
If I may start on this.
Yeah, sure.
I personally don't find it easy to open up to my fellow male friends. Mm-hmm. Neither do I find it easy to open up my fellow female friends. Actually, opening up in itself is just a concept where males, to be specifically, we're not. I'm speaking on my perspective and on the things I've observed. We are not wired or trained to open up in certain facets. We do every now and then, especially when we feel safe amongst our peers, but it's not our go-to. You know, it's not that I'm having a bad day or I'm having a bad couple of weeks and I don't feel like I'm in the best mental space that I'll call my friend and be like, yo, I just want to talk, or can we like go for a walk, or like just open up in some particular magnitude. We don't do that. Mostly we look for self-medication, you know. For other people it's, you know, other proclivities, but personally my self-medication is just gaming extreme. You know, even when I have got work piled up, I'll just, you know, I'll just put all work aside and just indulge myself in a fantasy world or something like
that. So let me just have a follow-up question on that quickly. So what is it that makes it difficult for you to open up to your friends? Is it, I know there are many things, there's like a plethora of reasons to that, but then what is it in particular that makes you find it difficult to open up? Is it the responses that you think you might get that are not, you know, like satisfying, or is it trust issues, or do you feel like, you know, I just have to have my own issues to myself? What is it that makes it difficult exactly?
Well, in my own personal opinion and perspective,
yeah,
the most difficult thing is I think the alpha character that has been embedded throughout my upbringing. From childhood, we as boys we're always trying to toughen each other, you know. If you're being bullied, I remember I had a nemesis when I was young. His name was Moses, very short young man, right? Very short boy, shorter than me actually, but he used to beat me up. So I could not call my brother on him because, you know, my brother is older. I can't beat up a youngster. So the gist is, while you're being bullied by that guy, you have to find a way of standing up on your own. Even if you lose 9 times, but at least one time you should win one fight, you know. And that propagates throughout the teens when you know, like it propagates throughout the teens, and as you grow older, you have to face your problems on your own. You know, like you have to man up to them. That's where the phrase comes from, right? Man up to them, like face them, like, you know. Yeah, so that's the whole gist of it. Or when I have some challenges, I'll keep them to myself. I'll find a way of fighting with them rather than burdening other people. I know they've got their own things to deal with.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a number of people that need more
contributions. I agree.
Yeah. I need more contributions. Anyone else to add to that? Like, what is it that makes it difficult for you to open up to your fellow guys?
Okay, so I think like Yotam said, it really stems from as a man not wanting to look weak, you know, and being judged by like people. That's why most guys really don't open up about like what's really going on with them. Yeah, because when you look at the whole idea behind being black, you realize that it's you are expected to be strong, you know, a Black person is strong, and as a man, again, you're not expected to show weakness, like Yotam said.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where it really stems from. So you end up boxing yourself and putting yourself in this box.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think
Okay, I think that adds up a lot. So now the thing is,
yeah.
the thing is, because like men are taught to like man up, like Yotam said. Men are taught to like man up, like Yotam said, and like you've as well added to that. But then the thing is, I want to know what damage that does to a man, especially in university, because you're expected to pay super close attention when you're in university, like study and like so you can walk out with good marks, if that makes sense. So now, in the midst of you wanting to concentrate and be, like being a man you want to be at the end of the day out of university, what damage does that do to you? Because yes, by nature, maybe let me call it by nature, because it comes from a very long distance, like long time way back. So now by nature, you're taught to keep the stuff up and just man up and deal with them yourself. But then when you're in university, does that affect your concentration, or what damage exactly does it do to you personally? That's one thing I want to know.
I think in the long run, I
Yeah.
think it does have some consequences, like to your mental health.
Yeah.
It might affect how you view your relationships and how you communicate as well.
Yeah.
It has your inability to express yourself and how you feel.
Yeah.
Might limit your connections and just how you interact with people and just your life in general.
Yeah, I think I can add on David's point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just flesh it out a bit more. Like when you undergo like the stigma of mental health, because most people they experience response or are not welcoming to them being frank about what they're going through, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Over time that builds it leads a person to being closed up. So like in a university setup, right, you see people being happy, moving around, being friendly and social and all that stuff like that. You as a person, you'll be like, okay, I have this mental health issue, you know what I mean? And these people, I wouldn't want to put that upon them. It would be a buzzkill. It would be something, it would be a turnoff for them, you know what I mean? Because not everyone is going to welcome you with open arms because you've got a mental health issue, you know what I mean? It's either you're going through manic depression, you have it could be a bipolar disorder, it could be anxiety, it could be so many things. So you even question, and this is where like someone who's going through a mental health thing, they have to be cautious about because the thing about people, we are a product environment, you know what I mean? So choose your circles wisely. You have to choose your partners wisely. You have to be more, cautious, more about yourself and about other people, because, our interactions, our connections with people, they affect us mentally, and they can add on or they can alleviate some of that stress that we go through, in terms of like mental health and whatnot. So I could say that. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. So yeah, I think I get it. Now, one thing I've gotten from other responses is just one common thing. It's there's sort of like I don't know if I should call it the fear of just not wanting to burden your friends. So you end up feeling like, maybe if I can just deal with the whole issue myself. You get, but the thing is again, because if you're going to deal with something yourself, that means you're going to depend so much on what is it that seems right, because this thing people call choice is super subjective. It depends so much on the information that you have. So if you're affected by depression, in this case, if there's depression, anxiety, and anything else that is a mental illness, those things take up the whole entire space. So they become like your functional system at that particular time. So then if you're in university and you have to study and you happen to have depression at that particular time and it's really sitting on you, what happens is that the whole entire concentration walks away. So if you're going to deal with it yourself, the thing I'm interested in knowing is, at what point would you sort of like find the escape zone to just like leave out the thought behind and go back to your normal self? Because that's one thing that I really puzzle about when it comes to men and the issue of opening up. Anything that we're told to say, you have to man up, you have to not cry as a man, you have to not show weakness and stuff like that. Those things sort of like pile up, and the only time a man will be super honest with himself is when they sit alone. Like that's when you get to answer all the questions that you have deep down. So if you're not going to let that out to the other person, I think that becomes a burden or a problem and a challenge. So now, moving to the next point with the same, I want to know whether you'd find it easy to open up to a guy. Now that I've known already that it's difficult to open up to a guy, Yotam said it's even difficult to open up to a woman or a girl, So now, the one thing I want to know is that if you so happen to get to a point, okay, now finally, I think I'm done with this thing, I have to just talk to somebody about it. Would you rather open up to a guy or a girl, or is it dependent on the kind of relationship that you have with the same person?
Definitely dependent on the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree as well. Definitely.
Yeah. So it's so much on relationship, like how far you've come with the person, how much is there anything to do with trust issue or what?
Sometimes it's about their level of perception. Sometimes, a certain character is welcoming to you based on, like in my experience, like my own personal experience, I feel like it's better to talk to people about mental health when they also go through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about like finding relatability. For me, that's, so you can find that you can talk to an elderly person, be it a guy, be it a girl, but you know that this person has a grasp of, I could go to that person. I would say, okay, this person knows what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than going to someone who doesn't really face that. Yeah, just to avoid the whole the whole stigma, the partial judgment, the whole buzzkill. Yeah, exactly.
So now, anyone else to add before I ask the follow-up question?
Yeah, I would like to add on this point.
Please go ahead.
And like I agree with Rameez. It really depends on the common ground of if we have a common ground with the person that I'm trying to open up with, which is extremely difficult to ascertain to begin with. You understand? Because in my experience, a relationship is only as strong as as the trust that's there between the two people.
Yeah.
So, for example, I trust my parents. I trust them. I love them so much. I trust them.
Yeah.
But I won't go and open up when I've got like some anxiety of going about. No, because in their eyes, I'm the super baby. You understand? I'm the intelligent student. So when I'm failing, barely will I go there. I'll go to my fellow students who were failing together, and we were going to like scream about course. I don't know. We're going to express ourselves about how much we're not enjoying a particular course, and if it gets extreme and like unbearable, we'll break down together because we've got that common ground. We are both in the same boat, as opposed to even sometimes it's even worse when your significant other cannot relate to a particular problem that you're going through. It's extremely excruciating because now your significant other becomes like your mother who you can talk to at a particular moment. You understand? It really depends on the common ground that you're sharing in that particular facet.
Yeah, amazing. So now the follow-up question I have, I think, goes to both of you. So whoever one is going to pick it up, no problem. So the question is, now that you've spoken about relatability, like having somebody who understands and relates to the same issue that you're facing, what room does it leave? Then what is the meaning of a professional person? Like, how people would say, seek mental guidance or support from a mental professional, whatever that is, mental health professional, blah, blah, blah. But then the question is it all the time that a professional person that we list as a professional person, is it all the time that they turn out to be supportive or solutional about the issues that we go through, or are there issues mentally that just want you to talk to your fellow friend who's relating to them? You get, I hope you get the question.
I get the question, and
Yeah.
I would like to jump the bullet on this one.
Yeah.
Personally, I have a friend who's a licensed and professional therapist.
Yeah.
Never gone to him for any problems because I have a confidant in whom I confide in whenever I'm having issues, either mentally or emotionally. I have confidence. But what I've understood about him in my interactions, people who are professionally licensed, who go an extra mile to even get a professional license and be like a professional mental health advocate or a therapist, usually are survivors of such circumstances.
Okay.
It's not a venture of money. I mean, we're in Zambia, please.
Yeah.
Therapists don't make money. They make a living, but it's not like a business venture where, oh no, I'm going into therapy.
Yeah.
That's where money is. So they do it out of, like, I have survived this, or I'm at least managing, I'm making my life better. Yeah. And I would want to give back in a more structured way, as opposed to, just being there when someone crashes, like, oh no, this person attempted suicide and they failed and you just rush there. But no, they're there, they're able to understand the person because they've been there. And the fact that they've interacted with a plethora of people and they've had a good way of training, they have, they've got tools and techniques to understand the person even on a deeper level, more than the experiences they've had. Yeah. So I learned this from observing my friend, that okay, not only is he a survivor, but he's made it his life mission to help people who were also in a particular corner, in a darkness that is as dark and thick, like it's so tangible, and he managed to find his way out, and he just wants to like help people find their way out of that place. So that's my end of it all.
I think thank you so much for that. I think that makes so much sense, because one of the things that I've been dealing with, especially in most of my conversations, whenever we start talking about professionals and the mental health issue, is that most people will say it's not really a bad thing to go to a professional, but there's certain problems, mental problems, that just require you to talk to someone close to you and just see how best they relate to the issue, and whatever response they're going to give, that makes sense. But then one thing we didn't get so much is how the selection, what is it that qualifies a therapist or a counselor, you get, right? In this case, a therapist. So now that you've explained that, I think that point has to be heard by a lot of people, because that makes so much sense. You get, like, it's like having something to sell, but people not knowing why they have to buy it. That's something that's been going on a lot. So now that there's such an explanation to that, I think most people are going to know, because there's so much skepticism about the professionals. Like, you feel like, have they been through this issue that I'm going through right now, or are they just going to tell me this motivational stuff like be strong, get back to your feet and stuff like that? You get, so most people just don't like going there for that particular reason, not understanding what exactly qualifies a therapist. So that makes so much sense, and thanks so much for that. Is there someone willing to add more to that before we move on? Okay, so we can maybe move on to the next. So the next is, how do you deal with any form of mental, either illness or just breakdown? Because sometimes it's not like too much. It's just like maybe, like fatigue or something like that. I don't know if fatigue is would call it an illness that is long-term, or it just comes by what you do in a day or in a week or whatever that is. So how do you deal with those same situations, like whenever you fall into such a trap?
For me personally, I understand like the nature of like coping mechanisms. I understand that, individuals have their own way of coping, you know what I mean? And, it's prevalent in society. If you really step out of, if you find that, humans are distraction, the daily repetitive routines of their lives and whatnot, so for me, it's about finding the healthy coping mechanisms, because you find drugs, they fall into all sorts of bad addictions, and it becomes definitive of their lives now. Just isolated. Add more on that.
I totally agree with Rameez.
I think, to be honest, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, again.
I think it's very hard to find an escapism for like when you're going through something, like when you're depressed or having anxiety issues. It's really hard because sometimes you just can't find a way to get out of it. Then at that point, that's when you see people trying all sorts of things, suicide and whatnot. I program a lot, so I can get immersed in all that and like just forget about the whole world. Yeah, I think so.
Amazing. Anyone else?
If I can,
Yeah,
just
sure.
add on what Rameez and Yami have been putting across.
Yeah.
Finding a healthy coping mechanism, as Rameez stated, is profoundly difficult, especially in university, man.
Yeah.
Like we are in a multicultural environment.
Mhm.
You see, drugs are a norm. Excessive alcohol is a norm. Promiscuous behavior is a norm. Name it, man. Name it. So it's like you've got all these options that you didn't have, and you are you're living a part of your life that's also new. You understand? Because society has put us in a place where we are deciding the rest of our lives. Like, I don't know what I want to be for the rest of my life, but I am at university, meaning I have to decide. I don't know if I'll enjoy what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. What if I don't like it? What if, what if I find it to be extremely hard? What if studying the course that I've always wanted to study is so difficult for me? I continuously fail. So finding the right, or should I say the healthy coping mechanism, is the most difficult thing in uni. I mean, other people have sports in their life where they can go and play some basketball. Here at Mulungushi, we've got a plethora of sports going on. We've got badminton, table tennis, rugby, football, basketball, chess. There are plethora of sports. There are people who are for that, and that's their coping mechanism. They do that and they get back on track. And there are people who are not sporty, and they are also introverts. Then it just takes one person to introduce them to a little bit of advice, and there they go. So I think finding the healthy coping mechanism is the most difficult. I myself, I don't think I've discovered my coping mechanisms, but I have a map of things to try out whenever I'm not feeling myself. And like Yami said, they make us into workaholics. You understand? Like I can attest it. I've seen Yami program like his lungs breathe cold. I've seen him program. And there are times when we just become workaholics. All you do is just stare at the laptop, like binge in academic work. Not that you are a workaholic, but you are trying to cope with the pressure. It's like you're just right now, that's what's making sense in your life. This is making sense in your life. When you walk out of this, you realize that, oh my God, she's not treating me the way she's supposed to treat me. There's that as well. At university, we're at a stage in life where our emotions and our hormones are I would say they're playing checkers. They're playing checkers. I read a post a few days ago on my status from a classmate that said, in university I meet 4 soulmates every day. And it was fun because when we read it in the room, we're like, okay, I get what they mean. It's like they're so their emotions are all over the place, and their hormones are all over the place, and disappointment is a common thing in that field of emotions and hormones.
Yeah.
And then coping with that is extremely challenging, coupled by assignments, due date, and family expectations, because our families don't send us here to fail. They do not.
Yeah.
You know, they do not send us here to fail. So it's a huge thing. It's a paradox. No, there's no straight line for it, and that's my take about it.
It's amazing.